Shabbat Shalom, friends. Shalom Aleichem, peace be unto you. I think we'll begin our service with Shalom Aleichem tonight on page 189. You know, we're in the midst of Chol Moed Sukkot, the intermediate days of the festival of Sukkot. And during this time, it's customary not only to build a sukkah and to dwell in it, but also to invite in your sukkah ushpizim, guests. And according to tradition, we invite in our ancestors, we invite in Abraham and Sarah, and Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Leah and Rachel, and King David and Queen Esther, and all of the different prophets and judges that were part of our people's history, as well as, you know, those whom you personally wish to invite. And thinking about that as we sing Shalom Aleichem tonight, because it's peace be unto you and enter in peace. And so Shabbat is a day of peace. Sukkot, we welcome guests as we do on Shabbat as well. So let's begin with that, page 189. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Barchuni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mi melech, malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Zeichem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei And on Shabbat, we welcome the onset of Shabbat with light. So it's my pleasure to call upon Andrea Galambos, who's going to lead us in one of the readings and the blessing. The blessing is on page 23. And those of you that are joining us on live stream, we invite you to light your Shabbat candles with us if you haven't done so already.
Page 20. On this day, we would see the world in a new light. On this day, we would add new spirit to our lives.
On this day, we would taste a new time of peace. We would rest from desire, from gain, and ambition for things.
We would raise our eyes to look beyond time and space towards eternity. Oh, may we come to see the world in a new light.
As it is written, let a new light shine upon Zion, and may it be our blessing to see its splendor.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'atnu me'asher Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu 24. Yedid nefesh avarachman, Yedid nefesh avarachman, Meshoch adecha, Erzoncha, Meshoch adecha, Yadalalayel, Ritzoncha, Yarutz adecha, Kemo ayah, Ishtachave, Yadalalayel, Hadarecha, Yarutz adecha, Kemo ayah, Ishtachave, the bottom of page 25. Sing a new song to Adonai. Sing to Adonai, all the earth. Let the earth ring out in song to God. Sing to Adonai a new song. Let the heavens be glad and the earth rejoice. Let the sea roar and all that fills it. Let the field exult and all its creatures. Let the trees of the forest sing for joy. Sing to Adonai, all the earth. Sing to Adonai a new song. Let the rivers clap hands. Let the mountains sing for joy. Sing to Adonai, all the earth. Break forth, sing aloud, shout praise. We sing to God, all the earth, with the words of Lecha Dodi. We welcome Shabbat. Page 29. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekala. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekala. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmianu el ha'yuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, v'shemo tiferet v'nekiyah. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekala. We join responsively on page 34. Ruth, would you lead us in How Can I Sing?
How can I sing of day and night when it is God who formed thee?
How can I sing of heaven and earth when it is God who decreed them?
How can I sing of mountains and hills when it is God who planted them?
How can I sing of seas and deserts when it is God who begot them?
And how can I sing of earth and its fullness when it is God who gave them deed?
I shall sing to God who fashioned all and is beyond all. It is to God I shall sing. We rise physically or spiritually for the words of Baruch Hu, page 36. Please be seated as we join together in the words of Ma'ariv Aravim in the English at the bottom of page 37. Frank, would you lead us there? Reading that?
What of all worlds, how insignificant we are in your sight, and how minute in your presence. You are a creator of the universe so vast that the effort to conceive it overwhelms the mind. Our mightiest telescope scanned at a corner of it. The rays of light that reach us from distant galaxies began their journey long before we came to be. Counted from first creation, the earth we live on was born but yesterday, and we made our appearance on it only a moment ago.
When we consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what is humanity that you are mindful of us? What are we mortals that you consider us? Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim.
Torah
Eternal One, who loves your people Israel. And your people of Israel, listen to the words that we are about to sing together. Shema Yisrael. Listen, pay attention, O Israel. Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. We rise physically or spiritually on page 40 for Shema and Ve'ahavta. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ata et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'otecha ve'ayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzvahcha hayom al levavecha v'shivata levanecha v'dibarta b'am v'shivtecha b'meitecha u'lechtecha b'derech u'shoftecha u'tumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yedecha v'hayu l'totachot b'einecha u'chavtam al mizuzot beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני You're standing, please be seated. We continue at the bottom of page 42. Rachel, would you lead us in reading Bet as we move into Geulah, words of redemption?
Of course. I, Miriam, stand at the sea and face the desert stretching endless and still.
My arms reach for the sky, and I want to sing a song rising and silently.
My nose open, I stop. Where are the words? Where the melody? In moment of panic, my vision was blank. Can I take a step without knowing the destination? Will I falter? Will I fall? Will the ground sink away from under me?
The song is still unformed. How can I sing? To take the first step, to sing a new song, is to close one's eyes and delve into unknown waters. For a moment, knowing nothing, risking all, but then to discover the waters are friendly, the ground is firm, and the song rises again. Page 44.
Micha
arm stronger than our own. So may you redeem all those who are still oppressed and persecuted. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, Eternal One, Redeemer of Israel. As night falls, we sing the prayer Hashkivenu, asking God to watch over us and protect us as we lie down and as we awaken in the morning to renewed life and strength. Page 45. Page 47. Jenny, would you lead us in the reading at the top of the page?
The tapestry of our Jewish heritage. The strength of a piece of cloth is in the threads of which the whole is woven.
The tapestry of our Jewish heritage has many threads and many colors, from bright gold to somber black.
With its colors echoing the events of the time, this tapestry was begun many thousands of years ago. Its weaving will continue for the many thousands of years to come.
The first strand slid through the fingers of Sarah, Abraham, Leah, and Rachel. Their thread was strong, their colors were brilliant.
The pattern grew, the length increased, and the stories of our heroines and heroes, their deeds, their lives were woven into a cloth of beauty and lasting strength.
We join together now on page 49 in the words of the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkadash Shmei Rabbah Be'alma divrach yirteh v'yamlich malchutei B'chayecha u'b'yomecha U'chayetecha b'et Yisrael We rise physically or spiritually for the words of the Amidah. Adonai, Sefatai Tiftachu fi Hagid Tehillah Baruch atah Adonai, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Lahanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Havot V'imot, U'mei V'geulah Livnei B'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Le'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Adonai, Mechayeh Kol Atah, Rav Yoshia, Mechalkel Chayim Chesed, Mechayeh Kol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim, Rofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Ukayim Emunatah Lishenei Afar, Mi Chamocha B'Giboro, U'Mido Melech, Melech B'Vitum Chayei, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman Atah Le'achayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like the softness of moonlight, illumines the darkness in which we walk.
Help us to see wherever we gaze, which presence is.
And we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh, blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. If you're standing, please be seated, and join with me responsively on page 54. You are one, your name is one, and there is none like your people Israel, a people unique on the earth. Our garland of glory have you given us, a crown of salvation, a day of rest and holiness. Abraham
rejoiced in it, and Isaac saw.
Jacob and his children were refreshed by its rest. In this rest are love and sharing, truth and faithfulness and peace, quiet and safety. It is the perfect rest that you have willed. May your children come to understand that this Shabbat rest links them to you, that by it they may hallow your name. And we join together in words of avodah, giving thanks to God and asking God to receive our prayers in the middle of page 57. And we have special insertion for the intermediate Shabbat of this festival of Sukkot. Be gracious, eternal God, to your people Israel, and receive our prayers with love. May our worship be acceptable to you. Fill us with the knowledge that you are near to all who seek you in truth. Let our eyes behold your presence in our midst and among our people in Zion. We praise you, Eternal One, who brings your Shekhinah to Zion. Let us rejoice and give our God and God of our ancestors. Let these ancient memories be acknowledged, recalled, and cherished in sight and sound. The memory of our ancestors, the memory of Yerushalayim, your holy city, and the memory of your people, the house of Israel, on this day of Sukkot. And renew in us love and compassion, goodness, life, and peace. With a compassionate, redeeming word, show us your tender love, for we look to you, our gracious and compassionate God. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato letzion. We praise you, Eternal One, who brings your Shekhinah to Zion. And words of hoda'ah, words of thanks, at the bottom of page 59. Modim anachnu lach. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Eloheinu. Modim anachnu lach. Radiant is the world's soul, full of splendor and beauty, full of life, of souls hidden, of treasures of the Holy Spirit, of fountains of strength, of greatness and beauty. Proudly I ascend toward the heights of the world's soul that gives life to the universe. How majestic the vision. Come enjoy, come find peace, embrace delight, taste and see that God is good. Why spend your substance on what does not nourish and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me and you will enjoy what is good and find delight in what is truly precious. And on this Shabbat, we pray the words of Shalom Rav, words of peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Ki ata We take a few moments now to pray the words of our own hearts. Page 65. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, Rock and Redeemer. Each one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals have their own names. One is known as Zman Cherutenu, the time of our freedom, which of course refers to Pesach. There is another one, Zman Matan Toratenu, the time of giving of Torah, Shavuot. And the third one is Zman Zimchatenu, the season, the time of our joy. That's Sukkot. That's the festival we're now in the middle of. Freedom, Torah, joy. In fact, during the Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days of Sukkot and also Pesach, it's customary to greet people with messages of joy. We say Moadim L'Simcha, may these days be joyful, and the customary response is Chagim Uzmanim L'Sason, may there be holidays and times for celebration. So Moadim L'Simcha, may these days be joyful. Now those 3 names for the 3 pilgrimage festivals, in ancient times, the Jewish people went up to Jerusalem. That's why they're called pilgrimage festivals. The way that we refer to them in our liturgy, in our prayers in the Siddur, are by those names that I just mentioned. But Zman Simchatenu, the name for Sukkot in our Siddur, is the only one that actually is referenced in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. It's derived from the Torah portion for the first days of Sukkot, in which we're commanded to rejoice, to have joy during this week of Sukkot. So if we look at Leviticus chapter 23, verse 4, it says, on the first day you shall take the product of hadar trees, branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook. We're going to shake those a little bit later. And you shall rejoice before Adonai your God for 7 days. And we find another reference later on in Deuteronomy chapter 16, where it says, after the ingathering from your threshing floor and your vat, you shall hold the Feast of Booths for 7 days. That's Sukkot. You shall rejoice in your festival. You, your son, your daughter, your male and female slave, the Levites, the strangers, the fatherless, and the widow in your communities. Rejoice. Joy. Zman Simchatenu. Simcha, rejoicing, is understood to be part of all 3 festivals, though. But there appears to be an added dimension on Sukkot. So how do we rejoice? We know we're supposed to build a sukkah. We're supposed to dwell in it for 7 days. We're supposed to sit in it or eat our meals in it or even sleep in it. As we remember our ancestors who built Sukkot while they gathered in the harvest, we rejoice in the harvest of the season. We feel the fragility of the sukkah as we look up through the branches of the schach at the sun and the stars and the moon and night. We feel the wind and the rain that blows through the sukkah and brings this change of seasons, and also will ensure that there will be water to come for the crops and the plants and the animals, and for us as human beings who really need all of these elements to survive and to thrive. And Sukkot is also the time when rain begins to fall. And we find joy in that too. We actually pray for rain every day in the Amidah. We say Morid Hadashem, who causes the rain to fall, or Morid Hatal, who causes the dew to fall during these festival periods. The Tosefta for Sukkah, which is a text from the 3rd century, tells us that the desire for rain was the impetus for a very special celebration that took place during these intermediate days of Sukkot. It was a water-drawing extravaganza. So if we look at that text, and we also look at the last line of the first Mishnah of the 5th chapter of Tractate Sukkah, that's a big mouthful, but basically the Mishnah, which was codified in the year 200 CE, tells us one who did not see the simcha, the celebration, the rejoicing of the place of the drawing of the water, never saw simcha, never saw joy in their days. You can imagine this must have been quite a celebration. And it follows from that the text that we know from Isaiah, Ushavtem mayim b'sason mimanei ha'yeshua, joyfully shall you draw water from the wells or the fountains of triumph. If you're not familiar with that, you might know the Israeli dance, right? Ushavtem mayim b'sason mimanei ha'yeshua, Mayim, 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 mayim. We're praying for rain, for water. So our ancestors took this quite seriously, and they had a big celebration with laughter and rejoicing and entertainment, because after all, this is Man Zimchatenu. We're supposed to rejoice. They really knew how to party. During temple times, on each night of the holiday, the Jewish community of Jerusalem held this Simchat Beit HaShoeva, or the celebration of the water drawing. And the Mishnah describes this ceremony in great detail. It would take place every year during Chol HaMoed Sukkot, these intermediate days, and the drawing of the water was preceded by all-night celebrations in the temple courtyard, with musical instruments and singing and dancing and fire ceremonies and huge oil-burning lamps that illuminated the entire city. There was an elaborate choreography that involved the priests, the Kohanim, and the springs of Gihon, and the dancing and singing and music lifted everybody into a joyful spirit of ecstasy. And this went on until daybreak, when a procession would then make its way to the valley below the temple in Jerusalem to draw the water with joy from the Shiloach spring. Now, if you visit Jerusalem today, you can go to this spring, and you can experience dipping into the spring where our Jewish ancestors dipped before they entered the temple. And it was quite a celebration, so much so that Rabbi Joshua ben Hanania in the Talmud says, for all the days of the water drawing, the Simchat Beit Shoeva, for all of those days, our eyes saw no sleep. It was an all-night, all-day festival for an entire week. Can you imagine? So the highlight of the festivities is the water drawing. But of course, there are other things that are happening as well. And one of the big highlights, the Mishnah tells us, is that the pious ones and the men of great deeds would dance while juggling flaming torches. And while some of the jugglers might have been regular people, among them were great scholars and great teachers. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who lived from about the year 10 before the Common Era to the year 70 of the Common Era, held the title of the head of the Sanhedrin, the High Court. He was known as the Nasi, the Prince of the Jewish people. And he was also a direct descendant of King David. During these all-night Sukkot celebrations, he is famed as being a fire juggler. According to the texts, the Mishnah in the Talmud tells us he would take 8 flaming torches. He would juggle all of them in the air at the same time without dropping even one, and without them ever touching each other. Now this, he must have passed down because this continued in subsequent generations. We have more jugglers. Levi, who lived until about the year 220 CE, who was a scholar who assisted in the compilation of the Mishnah, is known to have juggled 8 knives before Judah Hanasi, who was the great-grandson of Shimon ben Gamliel, the guy that juggled fire. And in the following generation, Shmuel, scholar, astronomer, and physician, and dean of the academy in Hardia, juggled 8 cups of wine without spilling a drop. I'm not sure which one is a bigger feat, that juggling the fire or juggling cups of wine. And apparently he did this in front of the Persian monarch, King Shapur. In the next generation, getting the sense this was a talent that kept being passed down, and that people understood this juggling to be part of the celebration. Abaye, who was one of the greatest sages in Jewish history, he lived until about the year 339 of the Common Era, he would juggle 8 eggs. Okay, maybe that's not quite as exciting as the wine or the fire, but he juggled 8 eggs before his great teacher, Rabbah. And he was a great scholar. He was head of the academy at Pumbedita. He was one of the most quoted sages in the Talmud. So not only did he have a great mind, but he also had a juggling talent. And then in the subsequent generation, the great sage Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, who lived till the year 370 CE, he would dance before the bride and the groom at weddings while juggling 3 hadassim, myrtle branches. That same tradition of juggling, of making merry, of entertaining and bringing joy, that continues to this day. If you remember the wedding scene in Fiddler on the Roof, there's this group of 4 wedding guests, and they dance before the bride and groom, balancing bottles of wine on their head. Remember that scene? Maybe that's a little bit more what Shmuel was doing, those cups of wine. Maybe he was balancing the wine on his head, we don't know. But that kind of entertainment still takes place today at Jewish weddings and bar mitzvah receptions. For these rabbis and scholars, text was very important, teaching was very important, but joy was very important too. And so juggling, that was a way of expressing profound joy and bringing the community together to rejoice, staying up all night to celebrate the festival. Sukkot celebrates finding this sense of joy even amidst the impermanence of things, because in many ways, that's what Sukkot is about. We build the sukkah, this temporary structure that we know we're going to put up and then take down within 7 days. And for 7 days, we welcome friends, we welcome family, we welcome ushpizin, we welcome the guests from our people's past. We welcome those who spiritually we'd like to invite in the sukkah. And for 7 days, we sit there, we enjoy the sun and the rain, the stars and the wind. We spend joyful, meaningful times eating and talking with friends and family and all of those whom we would spiritually welcome into the sukkah. Sukkot reminds us that we can find security even in the midst of uncertainty. We can find joy. As Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs teaches us, security is not something we can always achieve physically, but it's something we can acquire mentally, psychologically, spiritually. All it needs is the courage and the willingness to sit under the shadow of God's sheltering wings. And so as we sit in the sukkah once again this year, we say, Moedim l'simcha, may these days be joyful, and respond, Chagim uzmanim l'sason. May we always rejoice in these holidays, these holy days, and these times for celebration. So, Shabbat Shalom and Moedim l'simcha. We take a few moments now in our prayers to think about those in need of healing, those who are in need of healing of body and healing of spirit. When we turn to the words of the Misha Berach prayer, page 133, as we ask God to give them comfort and strength. On this Shabbat, on this Chol Moed Sukkot, we are praying for the following in our community: Shirley Herman, Esther Vokenmarkt, Rick Valentine, Simon Green, Yvonne Dixon, Marlene Friedman, Linda Levenheck, Jack Kudlatz, Francis Van Tyne, Suzanne Shear Stimson, Bernie McLennan, Harriet Lockman, Jill Rich, Ellen Becker, Ilana Miriam Batchava, Nicola Proetti, Lois Dean, Eliyahu Ben Yitzhak Vasara, Phil Berkowitz, Liz Travis, Rebecca Bodbull, Parker Kaiko, Tzvi Tzur, Philip Shepard, Carl Katz, Gilan Naruzi, David Friedman, Josie Pitch, Nicole Hansen, Renee Marmorio, and Raina Rowan. And I invite you to add names of those for whom you're praying, either speak their name aloud or to hold their name in your heart, as we join together praying these words. Mi shebeirach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Now it is Sukkot, and I realize we're not out in the sukkah right now because it is a bit dark. But we're going to bench lulav and etrog, shake the lulav and the etrog, and invite you to join with me in the blessing over lulav and etrog, which begins the way any bracha begins, but ends with the words al netilat lulav, which means who has commanded us on the shaking, the waving of the lulav. So we say together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat lulav. Amen. And I invite you to join us in the sukkah. If you would like to do this yourself later, those of you at home, if you're in a sukkah, you can go and, of course, do that yourself. Losing a little bit of the branches here. It smells very nice. I don't know if you can smell it from out there in live stream land. Please join me now on page 149 with the words of the Aleinu as we rise and pray together for the day when the world will be one and at peace. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gdula liotzer b'reshit, asher samcha k'liached et shemo, v'gohar aleinu l'amlich malchuto, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומשל יקרו בשמיים עמו ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו לעילוי אמת מלכנו וחסדותו כגדול בתורתו וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים מבעד והארץ מתחתינו ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו Please be seated. We turn to page 152. Human beings do not live forever. We live less than the time it takes to blink an eye if we measure our eyes against eternity. So it may be asked what value there is to human life when there is so much pain in the world. What does it mean to have to suffer so much if our lives are nothing more than the blink of an eye? I learned a long time ago that a blink of an eye in itself is nothing, but the eye that blinks, that is something. A span of life is nothing, but the person who lives that span is something. We can fill that tiny span with meaning, so its quality is immeasurable, though its quantity may be insignificant. We must fill life with meaning. Meaning is not automatically given to life. At this time, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those of our friends and neighbors, and all those people whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall the name of one for whom we are in Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, Michael Shapiro, the brother of Howard Shapiro and Carla Rose Shapiro, brother-in-law of Deb Stock, the uncle of Emma and the late Sophie, and the son of Francis and the late Philip Shapiro. We recall as well those whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of whose death occurs this week. Max Bernstein, the grandfather of Frank Kay, Baron DeLue, the uncle of Catherine Frank, Joanna Pagrak, and Eva Romberg, and the great-uncle of Ashley Romberg. Sam Romberg, the father of Wayne and the grandfather of Ashley. Rita Butler, the mother of Chris Butler, the wife of Harry, and the grandmother of Jenny, Abby, and Rebecca. Carol Madelon, the cousin of Robin and Sharon Burr. Reva Rosemarin, the mother of Leonard, the grandmother of Nicole, Chantel, and Danielle. Rose Ansell, the grandmother of Kevin Shine, and the great-grandmother of Elise, Rebecca, and Connie. Leonard Lazar, the son of Marilyn Block, the brother and brother-in-law of Jeff and Sandy Lazar. Mary Eisman, the mother of Barry. Sarah Kornbluth, mother of the late David, and mother-in-law of Harriet Kornbluth, the grandmother of Charles and Stephen. David Rhesus, the father of Sylvia Loeffler. Edith Gabrielle Chellam, the sister of Joe Tortel. Arnold Phillipson, the father of Diane Adler and the grandfather of Allison and Michael. Izzy Prats, the father of Arlene Botnick and Lorraine Chelsky, the grandfather of Ian, Robin, Mark, Julia, and Karen. George and Rosa Herman, the grandparents of Gavin. Ruth Herman, the aunt of Gavin. David Douglas Kugelmass, the father of Michael. Hal Ellison, the grandfather of Mark Fairley and the great-grandfather of Dahlia and Shana. Mendel Wuchenmark, the husband of Esther, the father of Toby Sunga and Rachel Labarsky. David Schiffman, the father of Carol, and the grandfather of Leah, Noah, and Sarah. Menachem Hamadani, the brother of Judith Tamari. Eduardo Del Carmen, the adopted father of Anthony Warren. Jack Hernick, the husband of Francis and the cousin of Arlene Botnick. Aviv Haller, the son of Leah. Harvey Taub, the brother of Esther Turner. And Deborah Taub, the friend of Susan Wilson. I invite you to share other names for Kaddish, speak them aloud, or to hold their name in your heart. At this time, we invite those who are mourning to please rise first, so that we might say to you, Min hamakom tinachamu. May you find comfort in God's sheltering presence. Now, as a community, we all rise to support those who are mourners and to say Kaddish for those who have no one to say it for them. Page 159. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechonu v'yomechon, v'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agalav v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olam me'almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'romav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol b'nei adam v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all those who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved among us, among all of the Jewish people, and among all the nations and families of earth. Let us say together, Amen. Please be seated. At this time, it's my pleasure to call upon Andrea Galambos, representing our board, for some brief announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Tomorrow, it's, I always can't find the dates here. There it is. September 25th, it's, we have the bar mitzvah of Kana Pal at 10 a.m. And then 28th September, Tuesday at 10 a.m. in Simchat Torah morning service with Iskor. Join us in person or on live stream. And next week, October 1st and October 2nd, our Erev Shabbat Service and Shabbat morning service. Have a good week. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And hope that you are going to join us for Shabbat morning for Simchat Torah, for more Shabbat. We have lots of things going on in our community, and we invite you to join us for those either on live stream or in person. So as we close our service tonight, it's my pleasure to call upon our own Joel Brown. Joel is going to lead us in Kiddush for Erev Shabbat, and that's on page 163. I invite you to rise and join with him. If you're joining on live stream at home, please raise your own glass together as we chant Kiddush.
Vayierev Vayivoker Yom HaShishi. Now the whole universe, sky, earth, and all their array was completed. With the seventh day, God had ended the work of creation and rested with all work completed. Then God blessed the seventh day and called it holy, for with this day God had completed the work of creation. Baruch
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hadafem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu mitzvotav ve'atzavanu, v'shamat kodsho v'yahavat ratzon b'pihanu, zikaron le'ma'aseh b'reishit, hiku yom techilah l'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher tziyad Mitzrayim, Ibanu b'charta, v'yotanu kirashta, mikol ha'avim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'yahavahu ratzon, inchaltanu, baruch atah Adonai, and as we close out this Shabbat, let's sing just one more Zmirah. Shabbat Shalom. 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 Shabbat Shalom, Moadim L'Simcha. May you have a good, beautiful day of Shabbat rest. May you enjoy the rest of this Sukkot. Enjoy. Shabbat Shalom.